Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling. That one where you have something important, something you know you need to do.
Hmm.
Could be a big work project. Could be finally tackling that messy closet. Maybe, maybe starting that online course you signed up for.
Mm.
And instead of actually doing it, you suddenly have this overwhelming urge to, I don't know, research the mating habits of Patagonian toothfish or deep clean the grout in your bathroom with a toothbrush.
Right. Anything's but the thing.
Anything but the
You're
thing. It's
how
that internal conflict, isn't it? The gap between knowing what you should be doing and, well, actually doing it.
It's incredibly common, and it often comes bundled with a whole lot of guilt and frustration, that kind of self-criticism loop.
Absolutely. The stress just builds and builds as the deadline looms, that nagging feeling that you're just like wasting precious time. It's something so many of us go through. And for this deep dive, that's exactly what we're tackling. Understanding procrastination and maybe, hopefully, how to start overcoming it. We've been looking into some material from Dr. Tom Lahue, specifically a document called Break Free from Procrastination.
And it offers some really illuminating insights, I think. What's powerful about Dr. Lahue's approach, or what seems powerful, is that it tries to move us beyond just thinking, oh, I'm lazy or I'm just bad at managing my time.
Right, it's not just about willpower.
Exactly. He gets into the deeper psychology behind it, and crucially, offers practical, actionable strategies based on that understanding.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. For you, our listener, we want to distill the most important takeaways, those nuggets of knowledge from this material. We're going to explore why we fall into that procrastination trap
Yeah, the root causes.
and pull out some concrete steps and strategies, things rooted in psychology, but also practical time management to help you feel more in charge of your time, your energy. It's not just about brute force, is it?
No, not at all. It's more about understanding those underlying causes and then consciously building new, more productive habits.
And one of the first things that jumps out, maybe one of the most surprising insights from the material, is that procrastination isn't just a simple failure of willpower. It's way more complex than that.
Often stemming from emotional factors, psychological factors,
Yeah,
things we might not even be fully aware of consciously.
right. It's not some character flaw you're stuck with. And understanding those hidden drivers, those less obvious reasons, that really seems to be the crucial first step to actually breaking that frustrating cycle.
It really is. So where do we start?
Well, let's jump in. First, let's try to really get a handle on what procrastination is according to this material. It definitely goes beyond just, putting things off.
Hmm.
It calls procrastination a common challenge that many adults face. And it leads to all those feelings we just mentioned, the guilt, the frustration. But the core insight right at the start is that at its core, procrastination is not merely a lack of willpower or motivation.
And that's a huge reframing, isn't it? Because for so long, the narrative has been, just try harder, just push through it.
Yeah, the just do it mantra.
Which doesn't always work. The source highlights that procrastination often stems from a variety of emotional and psychological factors. It specifically points to things like fear of failure, perfectionism,
Okay, those make sense.
and also, interestingly, a desire for immediate gratification.
Immediate gratification. Huh. Fear of failure. Yeah, I get that if I don't start the report, I can't fail at writing it.
Ah.
Perfectionism, too. If I can't make it absolutely perfect, maybe I just delay
Yeah.
waiting for that perfect moment that never comes.
Right.
But immediate gratification, how does that play into avoiding something important? That feels a bit counterintuitive.
Well, think about it this way. Dr. Lahue's material suggests that the relief you feel right in that moment when you decide not to do the difficult or unpleasant task, that relief is a form of immediate gratification.
Ah, okay. The relief from the anxiety or the boredom of the task itself.
Exactly. You're basically trading the potential long-term satisfaction of getting it done for the very short-term pleasure of not feeling that discomfort right now. That instant ease, even if it's temporary and ultimately destructive, can be a really powerful subconscious motivator.
So it pulls you towards the easier, more pleasant thing right now.
Precisely. And the material suggests that acknowledging these underlying issues, the fear, the perfectionism, the pull of immediate relief, rather than just focusing on the behavior itself, that's the crucial first step to unraveling the complex web of reasons behind why you procrastinate. It turns the focus inward.
So it's less about the task itself and more about avoiding the feeling associated with the task. Could be anxiety, could be boredom, could be that fear of inadequacy.
That's often it. It's a coping mechanism, really, for dealing with difficult emotions or negative feelings that get tangled up with certain tasks. And as the source points out, This coping mechanism looks different for different people.
Right, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of problem.
Not at all. For one person, it might manifest as this intense, almost paralyzing dread about a specific task, making them just freeze up and avoid it completely.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
For someone, it shifts the whole perspective, doesn't it? From self-judgment towards curiosity and self-understanding. And part of that understanding, the source mentions, involves acknowledging the role of time management and organization, not necessarily as the root cause, but definitely as contributing factors and areas where solutions can lie.
Right, like feeling overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of stuff you have to do, or
Yeah.
maybe not having a clear plan, that definitely makes it easier to just put things off.
Oh, absolutely. When you're staring at this massive, complex project and you have literally no idea where to even begin,
Yeah.
the mental energy just to figure out that first step can feel overwhelming in itself. So postponing the decision feels easier in the moment.
Avoidance kicks in.
Exactly. The source highlights that when you break tasks into smaller, manageable steps and prioritize them effectively, you can significantly reduce the anxiety that often accompanies large projects. This isn't just about being organized. It's presented as a proactive approach. It alleviates the pressure, yes, but it also gives you that sense of accomplishment as you tick off those smaller pieces. Structure can actually lessen the emotional burden.
That makes so much sense. Tackling one small hill feels way less scary than facing the whole mountain at once. The source also brings up the emotional side again, how the feelings that come with procrastinating, like the stress and anxiety that ramp up as a deadline gets closer,
Yeah.
they actually create a kind of vicious cycle.
Yeah, that negative feedback loop.
The very feelings caused by putting it off make it even harder to stop putting it off.
Precisely. You feel stressed because you haven't started, which makes the task feel even more unpleasant and harder to approach, which then makes you feel more stressed and maybe inadequate. And round it goes.
Ugh.
But the material suggests that practicing self-compassion, really understanding that this is a common human struggle, not some unique personal failing, can help lessen the grip of negative emotions. It helps you step out of that destructive loop.
Self-compassion. Okay, that feels like a really big piece. We definitely need to dive deeper into that later. It sounds like it's pretty central to Dr. Lahue's approach.
It's presented as a truly crucial tool, yeah, for making sustainable change. And this initial exploration sort of wraps up by stating that breaking free really requires a commitment to personal discipline and a willingness to experiment.
Experimentation, I like that.
Trying different strategies. It lists things like setting deadlines, maybe using planners or other tools, finding accountability partners, basically things to try and see what sticks for you.
So it's not just about understanding the why, but actively trying things out, putting techniques into practice. And the emphasis on experimentation is key, acknowledging that not every strategy works for every person.
Exactly. And remembering, as the source says, that every small step you take toward overcoming procrastination is a victory in itself.
I really like that framing. Celebrating the effort, the progress, not just waiting until you've achieved some mythical state of perfect productivity.
It reinforces the positive behavior, builds that crucial momentum, progress over perfection. That's a key insight running through this.
Okay, that gives us a really solid foundation. Procrastination isn't a moral failing. It's this complex mix of emotions, psychology, habit. Now let's get more specific. Let's move into the why. The common triggers, the underlying causes, and the significant impacts this pattern can have on our lives. This is where the source really digs into what sets that cycle in motion for different people.
Right. Dr. Lahue details several common triggers. One really prevalent and powerful one, as we touched on, is the fear of failure.
So how does the source explain the mechanism there? How does that fear actually cause inaction, that paralysis?
It explains that this fear can paralyze even the most capable individuals. It leads to avoidance of tasks that feel daunting or uncertain. The core insight here isn't just about the task itself, but how you perceive it. You might see the task as a potential threat to your self-esteem or competence.
So putting it off feels safer, psychologically, in the short term. You avoid the potential judgment, the potential confirmation of that fear.
Exactly. It's a protective mechanism, but, as you said, one that ultimately holds you back. You avoid the potential short-term pain of feeling like you failed, but you sacrifice the long-term gain, the completion, the learning, the growth that comes from trying.
So what's the counter strategy offered?
Well, the first step, the source says, is just acknowledging the fear. Bringing it out into the open, naming it, starts to dismantle its power. And then it suggests actively reframing your mindset, trying to view challenges not as threats, but as opportunities for growth.
Shifting perspective.
Yes. This perspective shift, the material argues, can significantly reduce the anxiety associated with the task. It wisely points out that every successful person has faced setbacks. It's not about never failing, it's about how you respond, what you learn from those setbacks. That's what truly matters.
That connects really nicely back to seeing procrastination itself as an opportunity for growth, for self-discovery. It's about learning from the attempt, not just achieving a perfect outcome. Okay, what's another major trigger identified in the source?
Perfectionism gets highlighted again, building on that earlier mention. The specific insight here is how setting unattainably high standards directly triggers inaction. You get stuck because you're constantly waiting for the perfect moment to start, or you're so worried the end result won't be absolutely flawless that you just can't bring yourself to begin.
Right. The relentless pursuit of perfection becomes the enemy of actually getting anything done. It's like setting the bar so impossibly high you're too afraid to even try to jump.
Precisely. The source later contrasts this with aiming for excellence, which is about doing your best while accepting that imperfections are part of the process. That distinction is key for escaping the perfectionism trap.
Got it. What about lack of clarity? How does that trigger procrastination?
Yes. Lack of clarity in your goals or tasks is flagged as another significant cause. When tasks feel vague or overwhelming, the source explains it's natural to push them aside. Your brain doesn't have a clear starting point or path forward.
So the ambiguity itself is uncomfortable.
Exactly. That's where practical strategies like effective planning and organization skills come in. They help break down large projects into smaller, more manageable steps. The insight is that the lack of clarity isn't just about not knowing what to do. The ambiguity itself creates a feeling of unease, and our brains instinctively try to avoid that feeling by avoiding the task that causes it.
So if the destination isn't clear or the map is fuzzy, you just stay put. The uncertainty itself is the trigger.
Pretty much. Creating specific, actionable goals clarifies things, yes, but it also provides a roadmap to follow, which reduces that feeling of being lost or adrift. The source adds that setting clear milestones lets you track progress, and here it is again, celebrate small victories, which can help maintain your motivation and focus.
Small victories as fuel. Yeah, that's definitely a recurring and important theme here.
Mm.
What else triggers this pattern of putting things off?
Distractions, of course, are a huge one, especially as the source notes, in today's fast-paced world that's just saturated with notifications, pings, alerts, constant stimulation.
Oh, yeah.
The ease of getting sidetracked by social media, email, even those seemingly productive but non-essential tasks like the ultra-clean grout is highlighted.
Ah, yes, the false sense of productivity trap. You feel busy, you're definitely doing something, maybe even something useful-ish, but you're not actually making progress on the things that truly matter, the things aligned with your real goals. It's just another clever form of avoidance.
Spot on. The insight here is recognizing these aren't just external annoyances. Often they become internal coping mechanisms. You reach for a distraction precisely when you feel that discomfort or uncertainty about the main task bubbling up.
Makes sense.
So to combat this, the source suggests practical things like establishing a dedicated workspace that minimizes interruptions and setting specific time blocks for focused work, free from distractions. These are concrete solutions, but the trigger is often that internal feeling that makes you seek the distraction in the first place.
And what's the final trigger mentioned in this section of the material?
It notes that procrastination can often be a symptom of deeper issues, such as chronic stress or burnout. When you're feeling utterly depleted, overwhelmed, emotionally drained by these larger things,
Yeah.
it's incredibly difficult to muster the energy, the focus, the motivation needed to tackle responsibilities. The insight is crucial. Your procrastination might actually be a red flag, a signal that you need to address the underlying stress or exhaustion rather than just trying to willpower your way through the procrastination itself.
So it's not about blaming yourself or trying to force yourself to work harder when you're already running on fumes.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the procrastination might be telling you something important, maybe, that you need to refuel. The recommendation here is prioritizing self-care, getting adequate rest, regular exercise, using relaxation techniques. These can significantly improve your overall productivity precisely because they address the root causes of low energy and motivation.
That makes a profound amount of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some key triggers. Overwhelm, fear of failure, perfectionism, lack of clarity, distractions, and underlying stress or burnout, each tied back to an emotional or psychological response. Now let's look at the ripple effect. How does Dr. Lahue's material describe the broader impact of procrastination on our lives? It's not just about the task itself, right?
No, definitely not. The material says it can significantly affect various aspects of life, creating a ripple effect that touches both personal and professional realms. One of the immediate and often quite painful consequences mentioned is missed opportunities.
Missed opportunities. Like what kind of things?
Well, think about potentially lost chances for career advancement because you put off applying for a promotion or didn't finish a key project on time.
Okay, yeah.
Or missed opportunities for personal growth, not starting that language class you're interested in, not pursuing a creative hobby you felt drawn to, even missed opportunities for meaningful connections, maybe because you kept putting off reaching out to an old friend.
Hmm.
The source is quite direct here, and it's impactful. Each moment spent avoiding responsibilities is a moment that could have been used to build skills, strengthen relationships, or achieve goals. The insight is that the cost isn't just the stress of the undone task, it's the compounding loss of everything else you could have been gaining or experiencing in that time.
Wow, okay, that really hits home. It reframes the cost significantly. It's not just about the late assignment. It's about the cumulative effect of lost time for growth, connection, achievement.
Precisely. And another major impact highlighted is a decline in self-esteem and self-confidence. When you consistently miss deadlines, or fail to follow through on your own commitments, or leave important tasks perpetually unfinished,
You start to believe the negative story about yourself.
yeah, the source says you might start seeing yourself through this negative lens, internalizing labels like incapable, disorganized, or unreliable.
Which, of course, feeds right back into that fear of failure we talked about. If you believe you're incapable, you're even more scared to try.
Exactly. It creates this really damaging, vicious cycle where the fear of failure leads to more procrastination, and then the procrastination reinforces the belief that you are somehow inherently flawed or incapable, which intensifies the fear. It's a downward spiral.
Ugh. But the source offers some hope here, too.
Yes, definitely. It states again that by taking small, deliberate actions and celebrating even minor achievements, individuals can gradually start to rebuild their confidence and change their narrative, shifting from a story of failure to one of progress, however small.
Small actions, celebrating wins. Yep. Those themes are definitely building as absolutely crucial parts of the solution. What about the impact on our physical and mental health?
The material clearly notes that chronic procrastination can contribute to increased levels of stress and anxiety just from the constant pressure of looming deadlines and piling tasks. And this prolonged stress over time can potentially lead to burnout or other health
Well, it's
issues.
not just unpleasant, it can actually be harmful.
Right. The powerful insight here is that tackling procrastination isn't just about ticking off your to-do list more efficiently. It's a direct investment in your overall well-being. Implementing time management strategies, taking action, breaking that cycle. This can lead to a significant reduction in stress and an overall improvement in their well-being.
So overcoming procrastination isn't just about being more productive in a narrow sense. It's fundamentally about being healthier, happier, less burdened by that chronic stress.
Exactly. It positions overcoming procrastination not just as a productivity hack, but as a really holistic approach to improving your overall quality of life.
Thinking about these triggers and impacts, you, listening right now, might want to just take a moment. Reflect on which of these really resonate with your own experience. Is it that fear of judgment that tends to paralyze you? Is it that feeling of being totally swamped by too much on your plate? Or maybe it's the siren song of those easy, immediate distractions. Identifying your personal pattern, your main triggers, is such a crucial first step toward figuring out which strategies might actually work for you.
Knowing your triggers really is like having the map to your own personal procrastination maze. It helps you see the path out.
Okay, let's dive even deeper now into the inner workings of the psychology driving this. We need to revisit fear of failure and perfectionism, but maybe with a bit more detail, and then explore the critical roles of motivation and that really key concept we touched on, self-compassion. The source actually calls fear of failure and perfectionism significant roadblocks, describing them almost as a kind of paralyzing force.
Yes, it really emphasizes how the mere thought of not meeting personal standards or societal expectations can lead to a state of inaction. For perfectionism, the insight is that it's where the desire to do things perfectly overshadows the willingness to simply begin. That pursuit of an impossible ideal becomes the very reason you stay stuck.
And the source really hammers home that just Recognizing and naming these fears, acknowledging their presence, is the essential first step. It pushes this crucial idea that progress is more important than perfection.
Absolutely. It emphasizes that failure is a natural part of the learning process. That's such a powerful insight, especially in a culture that often stigmatizes failure. The source points out that successful people tend to view setbacks not as dead ends, but as opportunities for growth, as valuable data points.
Reframing failure.
Yes. Reframing it from a personal indictment to just a normal learning experience reduces its intimidating power. It makes starting something new or difficult feel less terrifying. So instead of letting that fear dictate inaction, the source suggests focusing on the benefits that come from trying, regardless of the final outcome.
Because even an attempt that doesn't go perfectly teaches you something,
Yeah.
gives you experience you wouldn't have gained otherwise. Okay, perfectionism again. How does the source elaborate on this idea of it being an illusion?
It explains that perfectionism creates unrealistic expectations that inevitably hinder productivity and creativity. Chasing that unattainable ideal leads to endless tinkering, delaying, second-guessing, and ultimately procrastination. The key insight is to actively recognize that perfection is an illusion in most real-world situations. Aiming for it usually results in paralysis rather than accomplishment. That perfect moment to start rarely arrives, and the perfect result is often impossible or, frankly, unnecessary.
So the practical advice then is to aim for excellence instead of perfection.
Exactly. The source makes that explicit contrast. Striving for perfection is often rigid, fear-driven. Aiming for excellence, on the other hand, is about doing your best while allowing for mistakes and imperfections as part of the learning and creation process. It's a much more liberating mindset.
Allows for being human.
Right. It creates room for flexibility and adaptability, which aren't just nice to haves. They're crucial for effective planning and simply getting things started and, importantly, finished.
And ultimately, both fear of failure and perfectionism lead to the same place, avoiding starting or finishing. They act like powerful, internally generated brakes on taking action.
Precisely. They're really two sides of the same coin, a coin minted from fear and a need for absolute control that keeps us stuck.
So, okay, how do we counteract that inertia, that paralyzing force? The source brings up motivation again, calling it the driving force.
It describes motivation as that spark that ignites our desire to accomplish tasks. Understanding what truly inspires you. Maybe it's hitting personal goals, achieving professional aspirations, maybe just the satisfaction of mastering something challenging or contributing to a cause you care about, understanding that helps you tap into that energy and redirect it toward productivity. The core insight is that knowing your personal why is fundamental to unlocking that driving force.
And setting clear, meaningful goals is presented as essential for channeling that motivation.
Right.
We'll get into the SMART framework later, but just the act of defining what you want to achieve gives that motivation purpose and direction.
Exactly. And remembering to celebrate those small milestones along the way is key because they reinforce your progress and fuel your motivation. Each little win acts like a jolt of positive energy, confirming you're moving in the right direction.
The source also makes the distinction between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. That's a classic concept, but really relevant here.
Yes, very relevant. Intrinsic motivation comes from within the pure joy of learning something new, the inherent satisfaction of mastering a skill, genuine passion for the subject matter. Extrinsic motivation comes from external factors, rewards like money or recognition, approval from others, or avoiding punishment.
And the source suggests intrinsic is more sustainable.
Generally, yes. While both can work in the short term, the material suggests that fostering intrinsic motivation tends to lead to more sustainable long-term engagement because it's less dependent on external circumstances changing. It encourages reflecting on what you genuinely enjoy or find satisfying about tasks, even difficult ones, and trying to connect with those elements whenever possible.
That's a great point. Sometimes you can find just a sliver of intrinsic interest, even in a task you dread. Maybe it's the challenge itself, the satisfaction of organizing messy information, the learning involved, or even just the simple pleasure of ticking it off the list.
Absolutely. Finding that internal hook, however small, can make a surprisingly big difference. The source also links building a supportive environment, both the people around you and your physical space, to maintaining motivation, providing encouragement, and minimizing negative influences.
Okay, so the mental aspect of environment, surrounding yourself with people who are supportive or at least understand the struggle.
Exactly. And here's a really crucial insight about motivation itself. The source stresses that motivation is not a constant state, it ebbs and flows. It's completely normal to have periods of high energy and drive, followed by times when motivation dips or you feel burnt out.
So how does the material advise responding when that motivation inevitably dips, instead of just falling into self-criticism or giving up entirely?
It emphasizes resilience and self-compassion during these times. Instead of interpreting a dip in motivation as a personal failing, the source suggests taking a step back and assess what might be causing the dip. Is it fatigue? Is it stress? Is the goal unclear? Maybe adjusting your goals, seeking support from others, or simply allowing yourself dedicated time to rest and recharge are presented as constructive, self-compassionate responses, much better than trying to just brute force your way through exhaustion or lack of clarity.
And that leads us perfectly into that other absolutely key psychological element mentioned, self-compassion. The source really elevates this, calling it a powerful antidote to that self-perpetuating cycle of procrastination and harsh self-criticism.
It explains how, when tasks feel overwhelming or when you inevitably slip up and procrastinate, it's incredibly easy to fall into self-criticism and negative self-talk. But that inner critic, the source points out, only exacerbates feelings of inadequacy and stress. The key insight is that this harsh inner dialogue doesn't actually motivate you, it paralyzes you further.
Whereas self-compassion offers a different way.
Yes. Cultivating self-compassion creates a nurturing inner dialogue that recognizes their struggles without judgment. Instead of that internal voice saying, "You're so lazy, why can't you just do this?"
You approach it differently.
Exactly. It encourages a kinder, more understanding perspective. It's about acknowledging your fears, your anxieties, your slip-ups, without letting them define you or dictate your behavior. The source puts it beautifully. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend who is struggling. This gentle approach, ironically perhaps, actually reduces anxiety and that self-imposed pressure, making daunting tasks feel less intimidating and therefore easier to start.
And how does self-compassion help with those typical avoidance behaviors we talked about, like, mindless scrolling or binge watching when you know you should be working on something?
It's deeply linked to enhancing emotional regulation. When you approach yourself with compassion, you're more likely to pause and acknowledge difficult feelings rather than immediately needing to escape them. You're more equipped to use healthy coping strategies rather than resort to avoidance behaviors. So instead of instantly fleeing feelings of overwhelm or anxiety by grabbing your phone, you might learn to take a moment to breathe, reflect, and strategize from a place of self-kindness. Grounding yourself in that self-compassion helps break the automatic, reactive avoidance response.
That's a really significant shift. Using that moment of discomfort, not as an immediate trigger for escape, but as a cue to pause, acknowledge the feeling with kindness, and then figure out a realistic way forward.
Precisely. It transforms that moment of struggle from a trigger for self-attack into an opportunity for self-support. And here's another fascinating, maybe counterintuitive insight the source presents. Practicing self-compassion actually fosters accountability.
Accountability. How does being kinder to yourself make you more accountable, not less? That seems backwards.
It works like this. By learning to accept their imperfections and recognize that everyone struggles with similar challenges, individuals can stop demanding impossible perfection from themselves. This acceptance allows them to create realistic plans that allow room for setbacks, because they know a mistake or a delay isn't the end of the world. They can set achievable goals, celebrate small victories along the way, and learn from setbacks without harsh self-judgment. It fosters accountability driven by self-respect and a genuine desire for growth, rather than being driven by fear of punishment or self-recrimination. You're much more likely to stick to a plan you believe you can realistically follow, even with bumps, if you're not terrified of failing at it and the subsequent self-lashing.
That makes perfect sense. If you know a stumble isn't catastrophic and you won't viciously attack yourself for it, you're probably much more willing to just pick yourself up, learn the lesson, and get back on track, sticking to a realistic plan over the long haul. The self-compassion actually provides the resilience needed to be accountable.
Exactly. The source emphasizes that this journey of cultivating self-compassion is deeply personal, and it definitely takes practice, but it's presented as a valuable companion in overcoming procrastination. It fundamentally transforms your relationship with challenges, with productivity, and fosters sustainable growth and resilience.
That's incredibly powerful. So you listening right now, maybe take another moment. Think about your own inner voice. When you procrastinate, is it mostly critical? How might trying to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a struggling friend change your approach the next time you face a task you're really dreading.
It's a practice, for sure, but one that can genuinely shift the foundation of how you engage with challenges.
Okay, so we've laid that psychological groundwork, understanding the what's and the why, recognizing the key role of inner work like managing fear and cultivating self-compassion. Now let's move into setting the course for action. Dr. Lahue's material transitions into really practical strategies, starting with the importance of defining your purpose and then setting clear goals. The source calls defining your purpose a crucial step in taking charge and overcoming procrastination.
The core insight here seems to be that procrastination often thrives when there's a lack of meaning or direction. The material states that when you have a clear sense of purpose, it becomes easier to prioritize tasks and make decisions that align with your goals. Understanding the why behind what you're doing provides that essential motivation needed to push through discomfort and resist those tempting distractions. It gives your efforts direction and significance.
So how does the material suggest someone actually goes about defining their purpose? It sounds big.
It suggests dedicating specific time for introspection, for reflection on what truly matters to you. This involves asking yourself some potentially challenging questions. What you want to achieve, both in the short and long term. What core values are most important to you? What kinds of activities bring you a sense of flow or deep fulfillment? This reflection process, the source says, acts like a guiding light, helping you discern which tasks are genuinely worth your limited time and energy.
And then, once you have some clarity, it's important to articulate it, make it concrete.
Yes, it's essential to articulate it clearly. The suggestion is to write it down in a way that resonates deeply with you. This might take the form of a mission statement for your life or career, a vision board, or simply a list of your core values and goals. The act of writing it down transforms it from a vague idea into a tangible reminder. It also fosters accountability to that vision you've defined. Keeping your purpose and goals visible, literally, maybe on your desk or wall, can inspire action even when motivation wanes, because you're reminded of the bigger picture.
And the idea is to try and connect your daily tasks, even the boring ones, back to that larger purpose.
Absolutely. The source emphasizes the power of consciously choosing to connect your tasks to your defined purpose. Break down those larger, purpose-driven goals into smaller tasks that clearly contribute to your overall vision. Doing this makes the day-to-day work feel less daunting and more achievable because you can see how each completed step, even a small one, is a meaningful contribution towards something bigger than just the task itself. The example given is helpful. If your purpose involves advancing your career, then tasks like updating your resume, networking, or taking a relevant course aren't just chores. They become visible building blocks towards that larger, meaningful purpose.
And naturally, celebrating those small victories when you complete these purpose-aligned tasks reinforces the commitment and keeps that why feeling alive and relevant.
Yes, it consistently builds momentum and reminds you that you are making progress towards something that genuinely matters to you. The source also wisely stresses the need for flexibility. Allow your purpose to evolve over time. Life changes, you learn, you grow, priorities shift, and it's perfectly okay to regularly reassess your goals and the motivations behind them. Redefining your purpose isn't failure. It can lead to new opportunities and keep it relevant as you evolve.
So purpose isn't some rigid declaration set in stone, but more like a living, breathing guide that you revisit and refine throughout your life.
Exactly. And it's presented as a deeply personal journey, requiring that introspection and honesty. Engaging in this process, perhaps even talking it through with support of others, is positioned as key.
Okay, from that big picture of purpose, the source moves to the very practical SMART goals framework. This is a pretty well-known tool, but the material explains each letter in a way that connects it directly to tackling procrastination.
It calls using SMART criteria a fundamental step and one of the most effective frameworks for turning those vague intentions into concrete plans. The core insight is that vague goals are incredibly easy to procrastinate on precisely because they lack clarity and specific action steps. SMART goals are designed to fix that ambiguity.
Right, let's quickly go through them. S is for specific.
Specificity is the cornerstone. It forces you to get crystal clear about exactly what you want to achieve. The example provided contrasts a vague goal, like get fit, with a specific one. Exercise for 30 minutes 5 times a week. That clarity helps focus your efforts and leaves much less wiggle room for the ambiguity that procrastination loves.
Makes sense. M is for measurable.
Measurable goals allow you to track your progress. Incorporating metrics, numbers, quantities, frequencies lets you objectively see how far you've come. This is vital for staying motivated and, again, for celebrating those small wins. The example, reading one book per month versus the vague reading more books, it provides that concrete sense of accomplishment and helps you stay accountable.
A is for achievable.
Achievable goals ensure that you set yourself up for success rather than frustration. This is so critical for overcoming procrastination because setting wildly unattainable goals almost guarantees you'll put them off. They just feel impossible from the start. The insight is to be realistic about what you can accomplish given your resources and time. Break larger ambitions into smaller, manageable steps. The book writing example comes up again. Aiming to write 500 words a day might be achievable for many. Trying to write the whole book in a week probably isn't. This realistic approach creates a positive feedback loop as you consistently meet those smaller targets.
R is for relevant.
Your goals should align with your broader life objectives and values. This ties directly back to that sense of purpose we just discussed. Ensuring what you're working towards is meaningful to you provides that powerful intrinsic motivation and makes the inevitable effort feel worthwhile, not just like a pointless chore.
And finally, T is for time-bound.
Setting deadlines creates a sense of urgency and provides a clear target date to work towards. Example, complete a specific online course by the end of the month. This combination of relevance and a concrete time frame fuels your motivation and helps you prioritize. Without a deadline, tasks have a nasty habit of just drifting indefinitely into the future, the perfect breeding ground for procrastination.
So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, smart. It's a really solid, practical recipe for turning those fuzzy aspirations into concrete, actionable targets that are much harder to avoid or ignore. Building directly on that, the source really doubles down on the importance of breaking down those SMART goals into even smaller, actionable steps.
This is called out as an essential strategy for overcoming procrastination, and it's probably one of the most immediately useful insights. The source notes that often we set lofty goals without considering the practical steps required, and it's the sheer perceived size of the goal that leads to overwhelm and then inaction. Deconstructing those big objectives into smaller, manageable tasks creates a clear pathway forward, making the whole thing feel less intimidating.
Each small step becomes a building block,
Yeah.
right? Much less scary than trying to build the whole wall at once. How does the source suggest actually starting this breakdown process?
It advises starting by identifying your primary goal and writing it down clearly. Then ask yourself, what specific outcomes do I want to achieve along the way to reaching that main goal? Getting clear on those intermediate outcomes serves as the foundation for the breakdown.
And then break those outcomes down into milestones.
Yes, exactly. Break your main goal into smaller, achievable milestones. These milestones should also be realistic and time-bound, allowing you to track your progress effectively and feel that crucial sense of forward movement. The book example is used again. Milestones might be finishing the research phase, outlining all the chapters, writing one chapter per week. Each of those milestones can then be further divided into specific, bite-sized tasks, like find 3 key sources for Chapter 1, write the intro paragraph for Chapter 1, etc. This structured approach reduces the tendency to procrastinate because the very next step always feels small and manageable.
And prioritizing those smaller tasks within the breakdown comes next, I assume?
Exactly. Outline all the milestones and tasks, then prioritize them based on their importance and any deadlines. The source suggests using tools like planners, calendars, or digital task managers to organize these steps and even schedule specific time blocks for working on them, linking forward to the time management techniques we'll discuss. This helps you visualize your workload, see the clear path forward step by step, and keeps you accountable to actually taking those small actions.
And the vital reminder, yet again, progress is often more important than perfection. Focus on completing those individual steps, not on making each one absolutely flawless before moving on.
And lastly, highlighted repeatedly throughout the material, celebrate your achievements no matter how small. Seriously, completing even one single tiny task from your breakdown list is a victory worth acknowledging. This positive reinforcement boosts your motivation and reinforces the habit of taking action.
For you listening, it might be incredibly helpful, maybe even right now, to pick just one goal you've been putting off. Try defining it using that SMART framework. Or if it's a really big one, just take the first few steps. Literally, just identify the first 2 or 3 tiny, less intimidating pieces you need to do.
Putting these concepts into practice, even just on a single task or project, can make an immediate and tangible difference in cutting through that paralyzing feeling of overwhelm.
Okay, so we understand what procrastination is, why we do it, we've dug into the inner psychology like fear and self-compassion, and we've learned how to define our purpose, set clear goals, and break them down into manageable steps. Now let's get into the really practical day-to-day implementation, taking action through effective time management techniques and creating a supportive environment. The source leads with prioritization techniques as essential tools here.
They're called essential tools, yeah, for empowering adults to actually take control of their time. Because when you're faced with just a massive, undifferentiated list of tasks, it's incredibly overwhelming. Prioritization techniques clarify your focus, they simplify the decision-making process about what to tackle next, and they help you channel your limited energy effectively towards what truly matters.
And the source details a particularly powerful and widely used tool for this, the Eisenhower matrix.
Yes, the one famously attributed to President Eisenhower. It's designed specifically to help you distinguish between tasks that are urgent, meaning they demand immediate attention, and those that are truly important, meaning they contribute significantly to your long-term goals and values. Categorizing tasks into 4 clear quadrants based on this distinction is the core idea, and it guides your actions. That distinction between urgent and important is a really key insight itself.
Okay, let's quickly break down the 4 quadrants and what the source suggests doing with tasks in each. Quadrant 1.
That's urgent and important. These are the tasks requiring immediate attention. Think critical deadlines, crises, pressing problems that need solving right now. The source acknowledges you have to address these, but it includes a crucial caution. Constantly living in this quadrant, always reacting to urgent, important tasks, leads straight to burnout and feeling perpetually stressed. The goal is to manage these efficiently to free up time and energy for the other quadrants.
Got it. Quadrant 2.
This is important, but not urgent. And this, the source strongly implies, is where real growth happens. This quadrant includes activities like long-term strategic planning, building key relationships, personal development, like learning new skills, preventative health measures like exercise, proactive problem solving, basically anything that prevents future crises. Prioritizing time here is absolutely crucial because it allows you to work on things that matter before they become urgent crises. Investing time in quadrant 2 leads to significant long-term benefits, fostering a sense of accomplishment and purpose. Ideally, this is where you want to spend most of your proactive time to reduce future urgency and therefore procrastination driven by panic.
Makes sense. Proactive versus reactive.
Okay, quadrant 3. Urgent, but not important. These are often the sneaky distractions that demand your immediate attention, but don't actually contribute much to your important long-term goals. Think certain emails that feel urgent but aren't critical, unnecessary phone calls, meetings you really don't need to be in but feel obligated to attend. The key advice here is to recognize these tasks and delegate or limit your engagement. They often feel urgent because they align with someone else's priorities or deadlines, but they aren't truly important to your core objectives.
The time stealers.
And quadrant 4.
Yeah, neither urgent or important. These are the activities you should aim to minimize or remove entirely. They are often pure time wasters and classic forms of procrastination or escape things like excessive, mindless social media scrolling, watching hours of TV you don't even enjoy that much, busy work that produces no real value. The source suggests that by consciously focusing your energy on quadrants 1 and 2 and actively managing quadrant 3, you naturally reduce the time available or the inclination to get sucked into quadrant 4 activities. It helps you break free from procrastination by default. That matrix is a fantastic, really practical visual tool for sorting through the chaos of a typical to-do list and making conscious decisions about where your time and energy should go. The source also briefly mentions the ABCDE method as another prioritization approach.
Yes, just as another example of a simple system. You assign priority levels before starting. A is the highest priority task you absolutely must do today. B is important but secondary. C is something nice to do if you have time. D is something you can delegate to someone else. And E is something you should eliminate entirely. The underlying insight is that any system that forces you to consciously think through and rank your tasks encourages clarity and decisiveness, making it harder to just default to avoiding the important stuff.
Okay, prioritization is step 1. Next, the source dives into time blocking and scheduling. This is where you get really specific about when you'll actually do the prioritized things.
It calls these powerful techniques for boosting productivity and directly combating procrastination. The fundamental idea is simple. Allocate specific, defined blocks of time in your schedule for particular tasks or types of tasks. This creates a structured approach that empowers you to take charge of your day rather than letting it be dictated by random interruptions, shifting moods, or reactive impulses.
And it clarifies priorities and fosters accountability. Right, because it's right there in your calendar.
Exactly. When you've consciously decided that Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. is specifically reserved for working on that crucial report, your brain has a clear instruction. It makes it much easier to stay focused during that time and resist the siren song of checking email or wandering off to make coffee, because that specific time block has a designated, predetermined purpose. It builds accountability to your own intentions.
So how does the material suggest implementing time blocking effectively?
It suggests starting by identifying your important tasks, maybe using that Eisenhower matrix you just filled out, both personal and professional ones that need dedicated time. Then, break these larger tasks into manageable time chunks, tying back to the small steps idea. Assign these chunks to specific time slots in your daily or weekly schedule. A key piece of advice is to be realistic about how long tasks actually take. We often underestimate. And crucially, include dedicated blocks not just for work, but also for breaks, meals, exercise, self-care, even transition time between tasks. It's about creating a balanced schedule, not just cramming every minute with work.
And flexibility is important. Sounds like it could feel very rigid, very confining otherwise.
Absolutely vital. The source strongly emphasizes this. Embrace the art of adjusting your schedule when necessary. Life happens, things pop up, priorities shift unexpectedly. View these changes not as failures of your plan, but as opportunities to refine your planning skills and learn more about how you really use your time versus how you thought you would. Incorporating some buffer time between blocks for unexpected delays or overruns is also a really good practical tip. The insight is that the schedule is a guide, a tool, not a rigid prison you've built for yourself.
Setting boundaries is also mentioned as being pretty crucial for making time blocking actually work in the real world.
Yes, this is key to protecting those focus blocks. You need to communicate your time blocks to others who might interrupt you, maybe family members, colleagues, roommates. Let them know when you're in a focused work block and ideally shouldn't be disturbed for non-urgent things. And then, protect those blocks yourself. Turn off non-essential notifications on your phone and computer, maybe set your status to Do Not Disturb, close unnecessary browser tabs, and ideally, work in a dedicated physical space where you're less likely to be interrupted during those focused times.
That makes a huge difference, minimizing those external interruptions during your planned focus time. It sends a signal to yourself and to others that this focused work is important and needs to be protected.
It really reinforces your commitment to the schedule and helps your brain stay in that deeper focus mode without getting constantly pulled out of it.
Speaking of physical space, the source dedicates a whole section to creating a productive environment. It's not just about willpower. Where you work matters.
It calls a well-organized workspace a powerful tool in your arsenal against procrastination. The fundamental insight is that your physical surroundings have a direct impact on your mental state, your mood, and your ability to focus. A tidy, organized space literally sends a signal to your brain that it's time to concentrate and get down to work.
So how should we approach organizing our workspace according to this material? What are the key principles?
It suggests starting by assessing what items you genuinely need within easy reach for your current tasks versus what can be stored away, maybe in drawers or shelves. The source's advice is pretty straightforward. The less clutter you have, the less distraction you will experience. Visual clutter creates mental clutter, pulling your attention away from the task at hand and making it easier to feel overwhelmed or distracted.
And the layout of the space matters too.
Yes, the physical arrangement of your desk, your chair, your computer, your tools, your materials, it all affects your workflow and how easily you can access what you need. Ensure your setup is ergonomic to avoid physical discomfort during longer work periods. Designing your space with intention helps you tackle tasks head-on, rather than feeling overwhelmed by the chaos of a messy or poorly arranged area.
Organizational systems are also suggested, things like file organizers, trays, or even digital folder structures.
Right. Establish clear, consistent systems for categorizing and prioritizing physical documents or digital files. Simple things like using color coding, clear labels, and committing to a quick 5-minute tidying routine at the end of each workday can cultivate a sense of order and make it easier to find things and feel ready to start the next day.
The source also includes a point about personal touches, which seems small but may be significant.
It does. It says a space that reflects your personality and brings you comfort can also motivate you. Adding elements like plants, artwork you enjoy, or inspiring quotes can create a more positive atmosphere, potentially enhancing your mood and creativity. The insight is that making your workspace a place you actually want to be in can subtly reduce the psychological barrier to sitting down and starting work. A space that reflects your values can become a sanctuary for focus and productivity, rather than a place you associate with dread or obligation.
And organizing isn't just a one-time thing you do, right? It's presented as an ongoing process.
Exactly. Your needs change, projects come and go, so you need to reassess and adjust your environment periodically to ensure it still supports your current workflow and focus. It's a continuous journey of refinement.
Building on that idea of environment and maintaining focus, the source revisits the topic of minimizing distractions, but now with more concrete strategies layered in.
This is called out as a crucial step in cultivating that personal discipline and protecting your precious focused work time. The very first step, as we discussed when talking about triggers, is becoming aware of and recognizing what specifically tends to pull your attention away. Is it your phone? Email notifications? Noise from outside? Hunger? Knowing your main culprits is key.
And it reinforces the importance of having a dedicated workspace specifically for this reason, to minimize those environmental distractions.
Yes, designating a specific area, ideally free from clutter and household traffic, helps train your mind to associate that particular space with entering a productive state. Personalizing it with those positive signals we just talked about can also help strengthen that association.
Setting specific work hours and communicating them as repeated here is a tactic too, focusing on managing other people as potential distractions.
This is really about managing interruptions proactively. Communicate your core working hours or your planned focus blocks clearly to family members, housemates, or relevant coworkers. Make it clear that during these hours you are unavailable for non-urgent matters. This helps foster respect for your concentrated time and reduces unexpected interruptions.
And technology tools are mentioned again, but specifically in the context of actively minimizing digital distractions.
Right. Using apps or browser extensions that can block distracting websites during certain hours, tools that limit your time on social media, consciously muting non-essential notifications on your phone and computer. The insight is that since technology is such a major source of modern distraction, actively taking control of your devices rather than letting them control you is essential to reclaim your attention and protect your focus.
And finally, mindfulness and self-awareness come back into play as fundamental skills.
Yes, these are presented as foundational. It's about cultivating the ability to notice when your mind starts to wander off task and identifying the specific trigger in that moment. Was it boredom, anxiety, an external noise? Then, the skill is gently but firmly redirecting your attention back to the intended task. Refocusing is like a muscle. It gets stronger with practice. Taking short, intentional breaks, like a 5-minute walk away from your screen, or just closing your eyes and breathing for a minute, can also help clear your mind and improve your ability to focus when you return.
All these strategies really work together, don't they? The prioritization, the time blocking, optimizing the environment, actively minimizing distractions. And the source emphasizes that having a consistent routine acts as the foundation that supports and integrates all of them.
A well-defined routine is presented as providing essential structure to your day. It allocates specific, predictable times for different categories of activity-focused work, meetings, emails, exercise, meals, relaxation, even planning for the next day. This structure reduces the ambiguity about what you should be doing at any given moment, which significantly cuts down on the decision fatigue that often leads us to just default to procrastination because choosing feels too hard.
And routines help foster discipline, make it easier to stick to the plan.
Absolutely. Committing to a consistent schedule helps train your mind and body to anticipate activities at certain times. This makes it much easier to transition into work mode when your scheduled work block arrives, for example. The habits become more ingrained, more second nature, reducing the mental energy and willpower required just to get started, and leaving less opportunity for procrastination to creep into the gaps.
The routines are also highlighted as significantly benefiting mental well-being, which in turn supports productivity. It's not just about work.
Right. By ensuring that you intentionally build in time for self-care, relaxation, hobbies, and connection, a good routine promotes balance and helps prevent burnout. A well-rounded routine doesn't just boost your productivity, it promotes a healthier, more sustainable lifestyle overall, creating a positive feedback loop, a virtuous cycle, where well-being supports productivity and vice versa.
And they help in achieving those bigger goals by breaking them down into daily actions, not just big occasional pushes.
Exactly. By breaking larger objectives down into smaller daily or weekly tasks that are integrated into your routine, you create a system for consistent progress. You can track that progress easily and celebrate those small victories as part of your daily flow. This builds powerful momentum over time towards significant achievements.
And finally, a routine also serves as a really crucial safeguard against those constant distractions.
Definitely. Having a clear plan laid out in your routine helps you stay focused on what truly matters for that day or week. It makes it psychologically easier to resist the temptation to veer off course, get sidetracked by less important things, or fall down a rabbit hole because you have a clear sense of what you're supposed to be doing right now according to your own plan.
So, listener, thinking about your current workspace or maybe the distractions that tend to derail you most often, perhaps challenge yourself to try just one new strategy discussed here this week. Maybe it's implementing one small boundary around your phone during work hours, or maybe just trying to time block one single 30-minute task tomorrow morning and seeing how it feels.
Experimentation and making small, consistent changes really are the path forward here. It's not about overnight transformation.
These strategies provide the framework, the structure for taking action. Now, how do we build and maintain that momentum once we actually start making progress? Dr. Lahue's material delves into cultivating self-discipline, harnessing the power of habit formation, really doubling down on the importance of taking small steps and the vital role of celebrating those wins along the way.
Cultivating self-discipline is presented as a cornerstone of personal growth, and specifically of taking effective action against procrastination. It's described not as some kind of rigid self-denial or punishment, but more as the ability to push through distractions and maintain focus on important tasks, even when they are difficult or unpleasant. The really key insight here is that this isn't just some inherent trait you either have or you don't. It's framed as a practice that can be developed and strengthened over time, much like building a muscle through regular exercise.
And it links directly back to understanding your motivations, your why, as the fuel source for that discipline, right?
Yes. Discipline isn't just about forcing yourself blindly. It's about consciously aligning your actions with your deeper values and goals. When you know why you're doing something difficult, it's easier to find the discipline to stick with it. And the source highlights consistency as absolutely crucial for building this discipline muscle, committing to a consistent practice of discipline, even in very small ways initially, builds strength and makes it easier over time.
And routine comes up again as being really significant for building this practice of discipline.
Routines provide a structure that helps to eliminate indecision and distractions, which makes it much easier to apply discipline because you're not constantly wasting mental energy debating what you should do next. The advice is practical. Start small. Maybe just establish a consistent morning routine or a set time each evening for planning the next day. Gradually expand those disciplined time blocks as your capacity grows. This consistency will help reinforce your commitment and make disciplined actions start to feel more natural, less effortful.
And having clear, achievable goals is vital for cultivating discipline too, right? Prevents it from feeling like this overwhelming, impossible demand.
Yes, absolutely. Having those well-defined, smart objectives makes it much easier to apply discipline because you know exactly what action you need to take. Breaking larger goals down into those smaller, manageable steps, as we've discussed repeatedly, makes the tasks feel less daunting. This allows you to apply discipline to just the next small step and then celebrate small victories, which reinforces the value and effectiveness of having applied that discipline. Using tools like to-do lists or planners helps with tracking your progress and provides accountability, making your disciplined efforts visible and rewarding.
Okay, next up is the power of habit formation. The source touches briefly on the science behind it, mentioning the cue routine reward loop.
Yes, this is a fundamental insight from behavioral psychology, and understanding it is key. Our brains are basically wired to create behavioral patterns based on this simple loop. A cue, a trigger, like a time of day, a feeling, a location, triggers a routine, the behavior itself, which leads to a reward, the positive outcome that reinforces the behavior. The goal, the source suggests, is to consciously harness this loop to replace unproductive habits, like automatically procrastinating when faced with a certain cue with constructive ones. Your current procrastination habit might look like this. Cue, feeling overwhelmed by a big task. Routine, mindlessly scroll social media. Reward, temporary relief from the feeling of overwhelm.
So how does one actually start using this understanding to change those ingrained habits? According to the source, where do you begin?
It starts with awareness. The crucial first step is to identify your specific procrastination habits and the cues that reliably trigger them. The source suggests maybe keeping a simple journal for a few days. Note when you find yourself procrastinating, what task you were avoiding, what you did instead, the routine, and how you felt before the cue and after the reward. This self-observation helps you clearly understand your personal cue routine reward loops that are currently driving the procrastination.
And then, once you have that awareness, you design a plan for change.
Yes, design a plan for change that specifically targets those loops you've identified. The advice is to start small, maybe focusing on just one procrastination habit you want to change initially. Instead of letting the old routine happen automatically in response to the cue, consciously plan a new, more productive routine to insert instead. The example given is powerful because it's so small. Commit to working on a dreaded task for just 5 minutes when the cue hits. The insight is that this tiny action breaks the inertia and builds momentum. It's a small, manageable routine implemented in response to the cue of needing to start the task. Then, gradually, you can increase the time. And importantly, celebrate your progress, no matter how small.
And incorporating rewards after you perform the new productive routine is highlighted as key to really cementing that new loop, right?
Yes, it can significantly enhance your success. You need to consciously associate a positive outcome with the new productive behavior. So, after you complete that 5-minute burst of focused work, or after you successfully stick to your planned time block, treat yourself to something enjoyable. It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe a short break, a healthy snack you like, listening to a favorite song, a few minutes stretching away from your desk. Associating these positive outcomes with productive behaviors acts as a powerful incentive and literally helps rewire your brain to make the new desirable habit more appealing and automatic than the old procrastination habit.
Makes perfect sense. You're actively reprogramming your brain's reward system by making the desirable behavior feel good. The force also strongly emphasizes, yet again, the fundamental importance of taking small steps. It seems to underpin everything.
It's called one of the most effective strategies for both overcoming procrastination and achieving larger goals, and it really does weave through almost all the other concepts. When you're faced with those daunting, overwhelming tasks, the simple act of breaking them down into manageable, bite-sized pieces is presented as an immediate, practical way to reduce the anxiety and make starting feel possible. The core insight seems to be that the act of starting, even in the tiniest way, is often the hardest part, and making those initial steps incredibly small lowers that barrier significantly.
And each small step you manage to complete then builds that crucial momentum.
Absolutely. Each small step completed serves as a mini victory, as we've kept saying. It reinforces your confidence, provides concrete proof that you can make progress, and motivates you to tackle the next small piece. It's a positive, upward spiral built on small successes.
It also helps establish those productive habits we were just talking about.
Yes, consistently committing to small actions, like working for just 15 minutes on a project each day, or dedicating 10 minutes to planning your day every morning, builds those productive routines over time through repetition. The source stresses that the cumulative effect is substantial. Many small, consistent actions add up to significant progress on even the largest goals.
And taking small steps also provides more flexibility, doesn't it?
It does. It's much easier to adjust your approach or reschedule a small 20-minute task if your plans change unexpectedly compared to having to reschedule a massive 3-hour block. You're less likely to feel completely derailed or defeated. It also fosters self-discovery, the source suggests, because experimenting with different small tasks helps reveal your personal working style, your preferences, and areas where you might need to improve your planning or focus.
And finally, in this section on building momentum, the source puts a lot of emphasis, again, on celebrating small wins. It's presented not just as a nice little bonus, but as a truly strategic tool for motivation.
It's called an essential strategy, yeah. Vital for maintaining motivation and cultivating a positive, forward-looking mindset. It works because it creates that positive feedback loop. We keep mentioning acknowledging success, however small, boosts motivation, and reinforces your commitment to putting in the disciplined effort required for the next step.
It helps shift your focus, doesn't it? From dwelling on the vast amount that's left to do to appreciating the tangible progress that you've already achieved.
Which can be utterly transformative, especially when you're working on large, long-term projects that can otherwise feel endless and demoralizing. The rituals for celebration don't need to be extravagant. Maybe just taking a short break after finishing a section, giving yourself a mental pat on the back, consciously checking it off your list with satisfaction. But the simple act of acknowledging the accomplishment creates that vital sense of reward.
And it genuinely improves your mindset over time.
Yes, the source argues it helps cultivate a growth perspective. You start seeing challenges less as insurmountable obstacles and more as opportunities to learn, practice skills, and make progress. It builds resilience and confidence by constantly reminding you of your capability to move forward, step by step.
And crucially, it maintains that precious momentum.
It creates a rhythm, a cadence of effort followed by reward that keeps you engaged and moving forward. It builds both your discipline muscle and your capacity for effective planning and execution over the long term.
Wow, all these pieces really do fit together beautifully, don't they? Cultivating discipline through consistent practice, harnessing the power of habit by understanding and reshaping that cue routine reward loop, making tasks feel manageable by breaking them into small steps, and then fueling the whole engine by consciously celebrating the wins along the way.
They really do create a powerful, integrated system for generating consistent progress and breaking down the inertia that keeps procrastination going.
Okay, building on these individual habits and the momentum they create, the source moves on to discuss the vital role of accountability and support systems. The message seems to be, you don't have to, and maybe shouldn't try to, do this entirely alone.
These are called vital components for achieving success and overcoming procrastination. Having a network, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, a mentor, a coach, or even a peer group, provides the encouragement and motivation needed to stay on track, especially when you inevitably face setbacks or dips in motivation. Surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who either share similar goals or at least understand the struggle fosters a sense of shared journey and mutual accountability.
How exactly does sharing your goals with others help with accountability? What's the mechanism there?
By making your objectives and your progress, or lack thereof, visible to others, you create a sense of responsibility that can propel you forward. It's not just about potentially letting yourself down if you procrastinate. There's an added layer of not wanting to disappoint or fail to follow through on a commitment you've explicitly shared with someone else. This external accountability, when it comes from a supportive place, can be a very powerful motivator to stick to your plan.
And the source mentions finding what works best for you in terms of structure. Maybe it's a formal accountability group, maybe just a one-on-one partnership with a friend, maybe working with a professional coach.
Yes, the key element, regardless of the format, seems to be establishing regular check-ins. Having scheduled times to discuss your challenges, celebrate your recent victories, and simply report on your progress towards your goals. This structured communication maintains consistency, provides timely encouragement when you need it, and offers opportunities for collaborative problem solving if you get stuck.
Leveraging technology is also suggested as a way to facilitate accountability in the modern age.
Right. Using apps or online platforms specifically designed for habit tracking, goal-setting platforms that have social features allowing you to share progress, or even shared project management tools if you're collaborating. The visibility of your efforts to an accountability partner or group through these tools can create that external commitment and urgency that helps you stay focused and follow through.
And importantly, the source makes a point of framing, seeking support not as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of strength.
Yes, that's a crucial reframing. It's positioned as a commitment to personal growth and a proactive, intelligent step towards overcoming a common human challenge. A willingness to share your struggles honestly and ask for help actually fosters deeper connections with others and can lead to invaluable insights and different perspectives on your challenges that you might never discover entirely on your own.
That's a really powerful thought. So for you listening, thinking about your own journey with procrastination, who in your life might you be able to reach out to? Maybe just to share one goal and ask for a check-in next week. Or is there a habit tracking app or an online community focused on productivity or goal achievement that you could explore joining?
Don't underestimate the power of letting others in on your journey. It really can make a significant difference in staying the course.
Okay, finally, let's look at this whole process not as some quick fix or a destination you arrive at, but as a long-term ongoing journey. The source talks about the importance of continuously improving your skills and adapting to inevitable changes and challenges.
Continuously improving your relevant skills is presented as a vital component, not just for general personal growth, but specifically as an effective strategy for overcoming procrastination. The insight here is that sometimes we put things off simply because we don't feel competent or capable of doing the task well. Embracing a growth mindset, seeing challenges not as threats, but as learning opportunities helps you proactively build the skills and confidence needed to tackle those tasks more effectively, thereby reducing the fear trigger that often fuels procrastination. It builds resilience alongside competence.
So how does the material suggest you go about continuously improving skills in a practical way?
Through regular, dedicated practice and learning. It suggests scheduling time, perhaps weekly, specifically for skill development activities, maybe taking relevant online courses, reading books or articles in your field, attending workshops, or just deliberately practicing a specific skill you want to improve. Integrating this learning time into your routine reinforces your commitment and makes it easier to overcome procrastination related to tasks where you might currently feel inadequate or unprepared.
And seeking out feedback is highlighted as crucial for guiding that skill improvement effort.
Yes. Actively seeking constructive criticism from peers you trust, mentors, or supervisors provides valuable insights into your blind spots and areas where you could develop further. Feedback acts as a roadmap for where to focus your learning efforts most effectively. The key, of course, is to embrace that feedback with an open mind, seeing it as helpful information to fuel your growth, not as a personal attack to defend against.
Setting specific, measurable goals for skills development is also mentioned, echoing the SMART framework for tasks.
Exactly. Define clear objectives for what specific skills you want to improve and perhaps by when. Break down the learning process itself into actionable steps, maybe completing one module of a course per week or practicing a technique for a certain amount of time each day. Monitor your progress in skill acquisition and, yes, you guessed it, celebrate those small victories in building your competence.
And that supportive network we just talked about applies to skill development too, not just task accountability.
Definitely. Engage with others who share similar aspirations for self-improvement. Maybe join professional organizations, study groups, online forums related to your field or skills. A collaborative learning environment provides encouragement, allows for sharing knowledge and resources, and offers mutual accountability for sticking with your skill practice.
Beyond just building skills, the source emphasizes the critical need for adapting to changes and challenges, acknowledging that life is, well, unpredictable. Things rarely go exactly according to plan.
This ability to adapt is called a crucial skill for navigating the complexities of modern life and maintaining progress towards your goals despite unexpected obstacles or shifts in circumstance. The core insight is to try and embrace change, viewing it not just as an obstacle or a disruption, but potentially as an opportunity for growth and innovation. It requires a shift in perspective away from rigid adherence to the original plan.
The growth mindset seems really central here too.
Yes. Viewing challenges or unexpected changes as chances to learn, adapt, and develop resilience rather than as reasons to give up. It involves focusing on what you can control in a difficult situation, which is often your response, and choosing to respond positively and proactively to maintain your momentum and find alternative solutions.
And flexible planning is obviously key for adaptation. You can't adapt if your plan is set in concrete.
Absolutely essential. While having a structured plan is important for direction, it's equally vital to build in room for adjustments and be willing to revisit and revise your goals, priorities, and timelines when circumstances change significantly. The source suggests treating your planning artifacts, your lists, your schedules as living documents, constantly ready for revision based on new information or realities. This proactive approach to planning for uncertainty actually reduces the likelihood of procrastination when you do face an unexpected obstacle, because you have a mental framework already in place for adapting rather than just freezing or giving up.
A support network helps with adaptation as well, providing perspective.
Immensely. They can provide encouragement when you feel discouraged by a setback, help keep you accountable to finding a new path forward, and often offer alternative perspectives or creative solutions to challenges that you might be too close to see yourself.
And self-compassion comes up yet again, specifically in the context of adapting to challenges and dealing with inevitable setbacks.
Yes, perhaps most importantly here, you need to acknowledge that setbacks, mistakes, and unexpected challenges are a natural, unavoidable part of any meaningful long-term journey. Treat yourself kindly when things go wrong, when you stumble, when your carefully laid plans fall apart. This self-kindness, rather than harsh self-blame, helps you bounce back more quickly, learn from the experience without getting bogged down in negativity, and maintain your focus on your ultimate long-term goals.
The document and our deep dive sort of culminates with this powerful overarching theme, the lifelong journey of personal growth.
It really frames growth not as some destination you finally reach, but as this continuous ongoing journey that unfolds through deliberate actions and reflections. Every experience, including the struggle with procrastination and all the efforts you make to understand and overcome it, contributes meaningfully to this journey. It emphasizes that it's not a perfectly linear path. There will always be ups and downs, progress, and setbacks.
Personal discipline is reiterated here as being important for consistently building those productive habits and overcoming the ingrained tendency to procrastinate.
It's about prioritizing action, making conscious choices aligned with your values, and creating that supportive internal and external environment we've discussed throughout.
Effective planning and organization are also recapped as key foundational components.
Mapping out your goals, breaking down tasks into manageable steps, these reduce overwhelm, enhance productivity, and crucially boost your confidence as you consistently make progress.
And overcoming procrastination itself is beautifully framed, not just as fixing a problem, but as a significant opportunity for profound personal growth.
Exactly. It transforms a common challenge into a catalyst for positive change. The process pushes you to identify your underlying reasons, develop powerful self-management strategies, and build resilience. Setbacks encountered along the way aren't failures. They become stepping stones, invaluable learning opportunities on that larger journey.
Resilience and adaptability are highlighted as vital qualities developed through this process of tackling procrastination.
Learning to thrive in the face of challenges, embracing the learning inherent in the process, celebrating achievements along the way, and staying open to change and trying new approaches, these are the hallmarks of that growth journey.
Which leads, ultimately, to a sense of empowerment.
Yes. Viewing growth, including overcoming challenges like procrastination, as a lifelong journey empowers you to continuously evolve, learn, and adapt. It leads towards a more fulfilling, purpose-driven life where you feel more in the driver's seat, actively shaping your path, rather than feeling like a passive victim of your own procrastination habits.
Wow. Okay, that was a truly comprehensive, really insightful deep dive into Dr. Lahue's material on breaking free from procrastination. We've covered a lot of ground, starting with understanding the really nuanced nature of procrastination.
Yeah, realizing it's often so much less about simple willpower and much more about navigating those complex emotional and psychological factors.
To identifying our own unique triggers, the things that set us off, and recognizing the surprisingly wide-ranging impacts this pattern can have on our lives, well beyond just missed deadlines.
And we explored that crucial inner psychology, the surprising power of reframing fear and perfectionism, the importance of tapping into our intrinsic motivation, and especially embracing the truly transformative role of self-compassion as a powerful antidote to that harsh inner critic.
And then we really got into the nuts and bolts, the practical, actionable strategies, the importance of defining our purpose to give our efforts meaning, setting those concrete, smart goals, systematically breaking down daunting tasks into tiny, manageable steps.
Using powerful prioritization tools like the Eisenhower Matrix, implementing effective time blocking and scheduling, consciously creating a physical and digital environment that actually supports focus, and establishing consistent routines to provide structure and reduce decision fatigue.
And finally, we looked at how to build and sustain that forward momentum once we start through cultivating self-discipline as a practice, understanding and leveraging the science of habit formation, really leaning into the immense power of taking small, consistent steps and consistently celebrating those small wins along the way.
All while remembering to leverage the vital support and accountability that can come from others, and embracing this entire process not as a quick fix, but as a continuous, lifelong journey of personal growth and adaptation.
It's really a powerful, multifaceted toolkit, isn't it? It goes so far beyond just telling yourself, oh, I just need more willpower. It's really about deeply understanding yourself and then applying strategic, psychological, and practical tools to consciously take back control of your time, your energy, and ultimately your direction.
It offers a genuine, actionable path to moving beyond the chronic frustration and guilt, and stepping into more intentional, focused, and fulfilling action.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you to maybe ponder, something to carry with you from this deep dive, building on Dr. Lahue's material.
Yeah.
Consider this, that discomfort you feel when you're actively procrastinating, that familiar stress, that rising anxiety, maybe that guilt, or even just that restless, avoidant energy. What if that feeling isn't just a negative thing to be escaped or suppressed? What if it could actually be the very energy source you can learn to harness? Energy you can understand, channel, and consciously redirect into taking that first small step. Transforming that internal struggle not into avoidance, but into forward momentum and progress.
So the question becomes, what is one single, perhaps tiny step you can take today, maybe right now, building on just one idea you've heard about in this deep dive?
Maybe it's literally just writing down that one big, hairy, audacious task you've been avoiding on a piece of paper. Or maybe breaking it down into just the first two ridiculously easy micro steps. Or maybe it's setting a timer for a mere 10 or 15 minutes and committing to just starting with full permission to stop when the timer goes off.
That journey of breaking free from procrastination, according to this material, truly begins with that single, deliberate, often small action.